We are facing a major problem here at home in this country, and unfortunately, the majority of people here are lower income earners. Even the middle class is getting hammered right now as we speak. Unless you own assets, unless you have something that, alongside inflation, will appreciate in value over time. If that's you, terrific. But the vast majority of lower income earners do not possess those assets, meaning they're the ones that will get squeezed out in an increasingly tense economic situation. Here's the problem. Because the lower income earners do not have those assets, they're the ones who will struggle first, because food prices are going up, energy prices are going up, house prices are going up, the cost of living in general is going up. That's going to put more and more pressure on the everyday working man or woman that's just going about their daily business trying to survive, let alone trying to make it in this particular economy. We're going to look at everything that's going on, but before we do, it takes just 2 seconds. If you're new around here and you enjoy this video, please do consider liking and subscribing down below. And without further ado, let's get into it. And this isn't just unique to the UK, by the way. Our friends stateside have said exactly the same thing, because they have named inflation for the 3rd year running as the top financial problem that they face. But starting closer here at home in the UK, here are some of the problems that we're facing going into 2025. UK firms are set to raise their prices due to impending tax and wage increases in 2025. This one is a very interesting one because if the cost of running a business, i.e. the tax bill has gone up and the wages have gone up, if the cost of running a business has now increased, and if, let's say for argument's sake, the business does not have as many sales to compensate for that massive wage bill increase or massive tax increase, then the business is going to need to start cutting costs. And that could then be seen with shops closing down or people being laid off. Now, conversely, if people get laid off, they don't have money coming in. If they don't have money coming in, they can't afford the same goods and services that have now increased in price. So essentially, it's a merry-go-round of economic Armageddon. And we're already seeing the full effect with shops closing down taking place. Have a read of this. The UK High Street is losing some more shops in 2025. In 2024, more than 13,000 high street stores closed down for good, with many of those stores putting it down to cost hikes. But that's not the only thing that increased, I'm afraid. House prices also rose by 4.7% in 2024, and that meant that the house prices were now at record highs. This is now where we start to see the problems begin, and how the lower income earners, the middle class, they're now getting squeezed out, whilst the very rich in our society and the big banks, the big corporations, they're now making more money than ever before. And why? Going back to what I mentioned at the start of this video, they own assets. Assets like property. Banks own property. Rich people own property. Investors own property. Now, property prices, house prices went up by 4.7%. So, if they do end up selling them, guess what? They've made an extra 4.7% on the sale of the properties since the price increase. But if you're a lower or middle class earner, you're now having to fork out more of your hard-earned cash to get that very same house that may have been priced 4.7% less than what it is today. Let's say for argument's sake you were earning £40,000 a year. No other incomes, no other investments, just £40,000 a year. You were looking to buy a home priced at £200,000. Provided we don't spend any money on food, groceries, electricity, etc., you would need to work 5 years in order to accumulate that £200,000 to buy that house. However, let's say in the 5th year, the price of the house suddenly shoots up by 10%. You've accumulated £200,000, but the new valuation of the house is now £220,000 following the 10% increase, meaning the value of your money has decreased because now you need more pounds to buy the house. So now you have to work extra to accumulate enough money to meet the new valuation of the house. So, what should have taken you 5 years to purchase has in reality taken you 5.5 years to purchase. That's just one example of where the lower income earners and the middle class are now getting hammered heavily. Because if they no longer can afford homes because the prices are now going up, then they're the ones that are now getting squeezed out and losing out, as opposed to the rich who are buying up as many properties as they can. But this also raises a brand new problem, because people need to survive, to live. They need to pay for food, they need to pay for water, they need to keep the electricity going, the heating going, the gas going, etc. So, it's all well and good saving up for an asset, but if the asset is going to increase over time and you are not able to generate the money quickly enough, you may then find yourself going into debt, specifically credit card debt. Now, it's a pretty big issue in the UK, but my word, is it a massive issue in the US of A. Take a look at this. Credit card debt hits record $1.17 trillion, according to research by the New York Fed. If you take a look at the graph here, you can see over time, since 2005, just how far the credit card debt has shot up, the total credit card debt. I mean, it's astonishing. And it's being reported that the average American household has about $8,871 in credit card debt, based on the most recent US credit card debt and household data. Now, why is this a problem? Well, to put it bluntly, people who use credit cards end up in debt. And as soon as they end up in debt, they're now being charged interest on top of that debt. Meaning, let's say for example you took out $5,000 from your credit card at a 10% interest rate. The banks or the institution that gave you the credit card then apply that 10% interest rate straight away, and they expect you to pay that back in full with the applied interest. So you borrowed $5,000, but you're now having to pay back the original $5,000 plus an extra 10% on top, meaning you have to pay back $5,500. And this again hits the lower income earners and the middle class because they're now having to pay more money to the big institutions and the very richest in our society. They're borrowing a set amount of money, they're having to repay that set amount of money and extra money on top of that. Now granted, that's how the system works, and listen, if you're going to borrow money, then there should be some sense of financial compensation for the institution giving you that money. But the rates at which we're seeing credit card interest rates being set is quite frankly outrageous. As of right now, the average credit card interest rate in the United States is 20.27%, which in and of itself is a pretty astonishing figure. That's 1/5 of the total debt that you take out. Now just imagine the scenario for lower and middle income earners. Let's say they're using their credit card to get by in their everyday life by paying for food, water, gas, electricity, all using their credit card. So they're in credit card debt. They decide to take out a mortgage to buy a home because the house prices are increasing at a rate that their salaries just can't keep up. So they take out a mortgage to buy the home straight away. So they've borrowed more money from the big banks or the big institutions. Let's say they may need a new car. If they decide to start a family, then if they have a little 2-seater car, they're going to need to upgrade to a 5-seater car. So they may decide to finance one. They end up in 3 different types of debts. They're having to pay back more money than what they initially borrowed on all 3 of those areas that they decided to borrow. Whether it's the house, the credit card, or the car. They're now trapped. And it's very difficult to climb out of that system once you've been trapped by debt, because the interest that is being applied is quite simply astronomical. We saw what happened with the credit cards at 20%. Mortgage rates, if the house prices are going up and the banks increase interest rates, then you're going to have to pay back a lot more money. So the lower income earners and the middle income earners are being hit the hardest, but they're giving more of their money away to the rich. Now, just to be clear, in case there's any misunderstanding, this is not financial advice or investment advice. This is simply me giving my opinion and reporting on what's going on in the global economy today. And based on everything we've seen today, it doesn't look good. In the UK, we're starting to see businesses go under due to the tax bill increases, the wage bill increases, prices of goods and services now starting to go up simply because the businesses need to make more money to survive. In the US, I did a video last week on Donald Trump talking about the US potentially heading into a Great Depression, which in and of itself is pretty bad news, because if the US does end up in a depression, the global economy is in deep, deep trouble. But 2025 has only just begun. A lot can change in a very, very quick period of time. So who knows? It's never the same in the global economy. It's never the same in the world of politics. You never know what we could be talking about in a month's time. So let's see what happens. But until then, Thank you all for watching. If you do enjoy this video, please do consider liking and subscribing down below. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this situation as well. What do you think of what's going on, whether it's in the UK or in the US? I'd love to hear from all of you. But until the next time, see you all later and take care.